Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor. Now, today we are taking our monthly look at the new and used car markets with Auto Trader. Joining me is Performance Director Bex Kennett. Hello, Bex.
Hi, how are you?
Really well. Thank you very much for joining us. As
Thank
we
you.
were saying just before we started to record, it's nice to be able to talk to somebody new at Auto Trader. So thanks so much for joining us today. Um,
Thank you for having
yeah, so now a lot of viewers will be interested in how their March performance stacked up against the rest of the motor trade. So, what's Auto Trader's data telling you about March and how it performed?
It's been really positive so far, and in March, I mean, even up to now, in March, we saw that all that kind of consumer interest we'd been talking about and that we've been tracking in the sort of the winter months of last year, really positively is kind of converted now into that pent up demand and converted into sales. So we're really positive that that those kind of researchers and browsers have turned into buyers that we've seen through the plate change month, which has been brilliant.
Yeah. Do you think we're
And I
sort of
think
getting back
that
into? Sorry, I was just going to say. Do you think we're sort of getting back into um, those kinds of traditional trends, or do you think we're still in a bit of an abnormal market?
I think historically where we've seen obviously consumer confidence hasn't been as high, it started to creep up again. And traditionally consumers are aware that March is a plate change month. It's historically the retail month. And actually I think, we've seen that on our platform, 11% more visits year on year in March, which, has come from those researching in those kind of December, February months. And actually that's converted into leads. They're up a fifth since the start of the year. So it definitely feels like it's trending back to perhaps what we'd traditionally known in new car. And obviously anything compared to previous years is going to be positive, as we've had such a challenging time of it with new car. So yeah, it's really positive to see that starting to convert.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I mean, we've always got to talk about it, but electric cars. I mean, what trends are coming through in terms of the electric market? Because it does seem to be quite an evolving thing, doesn't it?
Definitely. And I think we've seen, I mean, it's been a really strong month for new car sales in March. For electric vehicles with 69,000 registered in March, that's 43% up last year, which was, that's a huge increase. We've obviously seen some of those trends that you'd expect with electric, with discounts have increased by about, just over 0.6%. So they were on average of around just under 11, 10.9%. Now they're at 11.5. So it's slightly creeping up, which, is due to really kind of strong offerings from the brands and the retailers to incentivize those consumers. And I think that coupled with education, we're seeing more people view electric vehicles. That's up nearly 60% versus March last year. So I think if you add that kind of, consumer interest, education, plus there's obviously push from manufacturers and from retailers as well. So it's the 20% of our inquiries that we see are electric, which is, is really strong to see. It's still behind. I don't know if you remember the fuel shortage back in June 22. That was kind of the peak we saw at 32% of those inquiries being for electric, but it's still very strong for electric vehicles. And we've seen some of that come from, a whole host of vehicles, and maybe some that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see, which is always nice. There's some sort of front runners in there. MG ZS is still up there. You see in lots of our data, you'll see the MG appear, and that's still the most in demand electric vehicle. With it takes about 11% of our leads, which is incredible for that model.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, looking at sort of March's figures in terms of electric cars, I mean, there did seem to be a small uptick in terms of private demand, but it is still very much weighted towards fleet and business, isn't it? And that is a bit of a problem for dealers and for the
Yeah.
industry, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that the challenge with things like fleet, and obviously you've got self-sacrifice, obviously there's been some ZEV changes and that's impacted with, they're still going to continue things like self-sac, and that those kind of fleet sales, Motability, those areas of the market are still going to take that kind of the share, as you say. I just think for retail it's definitely sort of looks like there's positive signs of it, I guess, recovering back to maybe what we'd seen before. And things like the Renault 5, those new kind of EVs that are launching are just taking so much more market share, and they're taking huge amounts of ad views. BYD, those kind of brands. JQ7's done really well. That's
Yeah.
converted lots of new cars, not just electric as well. So with those kind of new entrants and different models and things, I think that will help stimulate that retail demand and push that up in the future, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's your data telling you in terms of the ZEV mandate? I mean, do you think we're on track to hit it this year? 28%. It is a bit. It's a big figure, isn't it?
It's a very big figure. I mean, it's the biggest EV. UK is the biggest EV market in Europe, the third largest globally. So I think, like I've mentioned, we've got a wave of kind of affordable EVs. That's really helped with the kind of affordability gap. But it's still a big increase. It's 23% more expensive than a nice vehicle. So there's sort of always going to be that challenge. The 28%, like as you say, this year, we're going to see more financial incentives. They're likely to come over the next few months. That will hopefully encourage consumers to switch to electric. But we're unsure how those kind of changes are going to manifest. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on it, but that upfront price gap has fallen. So that was 37% at the start of 2024 when we factor in all the discounts and all the fuel savings. EVs are just getting much more affordable than they've ever been, and they're sort of more desirable, bigger tech, bit sexier looking. There's a lot more choice. It's not that you'd have to have that one model that was available, and I think it's just breaking down different consumer kind of and myth busting and consumer assumptions, and obviously things like charge points, all of that will play into it. Hopefully things like that, with the ZEV mandate changes, we'll start to see some of those kind of pushes in the right areas that we need for people to be able to access charging as well as understanding the vehicles that they're investing in.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that the government's opportunity to make some changes in terms of incentivizing new car buyers was, uh, this week, early April, with the big announcement. Some saying it's watering down, making hybrids allowed to be on sale for longer. I mean, there doesn't seem to be much of an indication from the government that they're going to incentivize buyers. I suppose it's going to be left down to car manufacturers keep trimming prices and offering those incentives. Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think incentives from, we know that brands obviously normally kind of create good consumer incentives, and the retailers further support those, giving car buyers real access to, ultimately a vehicle that's more expensive and potentially a bit more. They're not as confident to understand how they can charge. Some people you're still going to have people that live in flats that need to publicly charge. That I think once you can overcome that barrier, price shouldn't be the thing that holds someone back, not in a market where it's as competitive as it is today. I think that one of the issues that we'll see this year is that there will be so much choice for consumers, and it's how can you compare those different makes and models, all those different options. What are you getting with that vehicle all in one place? We're launching something at the end of this month to help consumers to do that, just to see monthly payments on new cars that the retailers can put in themselves. That will give them that ability to be really competitive and transparent on their pricing. It's not all about being the cheapest, being about the best value and giving the consumer the best understanding of what they're getting, how you're going to look after them, and out retailing everybody else. And I think monthly payments, as always, 9 in 10 new cars are bought on finance. It's going to be the biggest opportunity that retailers and brands have to incentivize buyers. Absolutely.
Yeah. Of course, it's not just the ZEV mandate. We can get a little bit too focused on that, can't we? There are other challenges in the industry at the moment. I mean, it does look like the next few months, the next 6 months at least, does look like a bit of a challenging time for retailers, manufacturers, and motor trade, doesn't it?
I feel like this industry is so used to a challenging market, isn't it? We've been through so much as an industry. I don't know
Yeah.
what more they can throw at us, but we'll always survive. And I do agree it's going to get harder and harder. But the only out sort of the positives that you see is that there is an opportunity there for consumers to enter into a new vehicle, to kind of finally, with price barriers being broken down and everybody kind of forced to be being more competitive on certain things like price, but also where you've got good product, different product. We're targeting much kind of younger car buyers because you have got things that are more affordable from an electric point of view. Some really competitive offers out there now, and they're only going to get stronger. So that I think that by opening up that for consumers, there's a positive there because you're going to be getting them behind the wheel of a new car. That, of course, brings in a part exchange. We're seeing some groups are having some really strong attachment rates of part exchanges at the moment and for this last quarter. So bringing those kind of 3 to 5 year old vehicles back into the market is really important for those retailers. So I think there's always going to be, with all challenges come opportunity, as we all know. So I feel like over the next 6 to 12 months, we're definitely not excused from having another tricky time. But I know that there's positives we can take out of it on things like, kind of really pushing those consumers into those vehicles, bringing the part exchanges with it, out retailing everybody else, and just being as transparent as you can with your stock online. I think
Yeah.
will help.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely one of those opportunities, I suppose you could say, are these new brands that are appearing thick and fast. I mean, this year we're going to be seeing a huge number of new brands enter the market. Um, I mean, do you think this is going to have a big impact, or do you think it's sort of slightly over exaggerated the impact that new brands are going to have on the
No,
marketplace?
I definitely don't think it's exaggerated. I mean, we've had 48 brands in 2024 versus you've got 70 at the end of this year. I mean, it's a huge increase, and that's just the brands. If you then think about the model sets that's within that, you've got a load of new models, and you hear all these different names and all these different numbers and all these different, from a consumer point of view, that's incredibly confusing,
Mm.
because you don't know what you don't know what you're searching for. You don't know what you're, where are you looking up what that model looks like, and how are you trying to work out if that's the right model for you. You've kind of got to go, there's more research to be done ultimately. So the easier we can make that for consumers, the better. But also I think there will create kind of challenges for those longer standing heritage brands. They'll have to fight harder where you've perhaps relied on heritage for a long time. Actually, you need to stand out in what is a now very crowded market, particularly with bigger value, bigger tech, more attractive vehicles. You've got to really think about from a consumer point of view. If you're looking at a BYD CLU, that's a fantastic piece of kit that's got everything on it, as it were, all the bells and whistles, and it's for such an affordable price point, and it's electric, so you're being sustainable, you're saving money in the longer term. It's a very good opportunity for those brands to come in. But what it also creates is for those traditional brands, they shouldn't shy away from that, and they should really stand up to compete and make sure that you are exposing everything you can for consumers and giving them that same journey and that same uh, kind of digital examples, and when you go into the show, the same experiences you would get, and making sure that they're not resting on their laurels, as it were, which I think is good for the consumer again, because you're seeing the best of the market, you're seeing the best from the dealers, you want the best offers, you want the best consumer experience when you're buying what is possibly your now biggest purchase, because people don't always buy. The housing market is still quite tricky for a lot of people to get on, so the car has sort of become for a lot of people their biggest purchase. So I think those traditional brands have definitely got to step up and make sure they're being perhaps more defensive in their marketing and advertising.
Mm. Um, Lastly, Bex, I mean, it is quite easy to be sort of a bit depressed about everything that's happening at the moment, tariffs, mandate, etc., etc. I'd like to end on a bit of a positive note. I mean, for the dealers and manufacturers listening to this, I mean, what do you think the positives are for the rest of the year?
I mean, I had a friend that recently bought a car, and she had such a fantastic experience that I think there is a huge opportunity now to capitalize on where people, we've seen in consumer confidence, they're more confident, they've perhaps got savings banked away. There's an opportunity where people are holidaying in the UK a lot more than they've ever done. The car really has become such an important purchase to people for so many different reasons that I think if you're a retailer today, make sure that you're giving your stock every opportunity to be, physically available to those consumers, that they can find it, that they know you've got it, and tell them the best stories that you can about that vehicle, and make sure that you're engaging that consumer in your business as best you can, and taking them out of the market, because they don't want to be searching forever. People want to look, they want to browse, and they want to buy ultimately. And if you can help them on that journey and ensure they have a fantastic experience, there's opportunity to be had. It's just, I think sometimes we, like you say, it's been so tricky and so challenging that perhaps we need to be a bit more confident in saying, right, that's a genuine, there are car buyers out there, we just need to make sure that we're delighting them with a fantastic service, giving them the best value, and we're taking them out of the market, and then everybody's happy. Someone gets a fantastic new product that they haven't perhaps considered before. You've got your local buyer. It's exactly how it's supposed to be, and I think slowly but surely we're getting there, and it's just about continuing to out retail and make sure we're bringing those standards up for the motor trade, because I think still hard for a lot of dealers to advertise stock. They're physically not there. There's challenges with that. So I think just doing some of those basic practices brilliantly is really important this year.
Yeah. Wow, that's a perfect way to end. Thanks so much for joining us, Bex. You're welcome back anytime, just FYI. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
For today's Car Dealer Live, that's it. Thanks very much for joining us. See you soon. Bye bye.